A 43-year-old New York man just was sentenced to 40 years to life after he was found guilty of pow-powing his pregnant ex-girlfriend, resulting in the life of her and her unborn child.
Man kills pregnant ex immediately after baby shower while her kids watched. It was supposed to be a day of celebration. Pink and blue balloons. Laughter. A baby shower for Shanice Young, mother of two, pregnant with her third child. But before the last gift was even opened, the unthinkable happened. In front of her children, in broad daylight, her ex-boyfriend, Justin Soriano, pulled out a gun, and ended her life. The youngest was still holding a party favor when the shots rang out. The oldest would later tell police, "Mommy fell and didn't get back up." 40 years to life. That's the sentence Justin Soriano received. But no amount of prison time could undo the horror of that day, the last day Shanice's children would ever see their mother alive. This is a story about love turned to rage. About a life stolen too soon. And about the children who witnessed the unimaginable. Smash that like and subscribe button to get right into it. Shanice Young was born on May 18, 1990, in Brooklyn, New York, a borough of dreams, struggles, and relentless hustle. From the start, she was a fighter. Raised by a single mother in East Flatbush, she learned early that life wouldn't hand her anything. But Shanice had a light in her, a smile that could disarm the toughest room, a heart that refused to harden, no matter what life threw at her. As a little girl, she loved dancing, hip-hop, mostly. Friends remember her freestyling in the schoolyard, laughing as she nailed every move. But even then, danger lurked at the edges of her world. The neighborhood wasn't kind. Gunshots at night. Friends lost too soon. Yet Shanice. She dreamed bigger. By her teens, Shanice was beautiful, tall, confident, with a wit sharp enough to cut through any nonsense. But love? Love would be her first battlefield. At 16, she met her first serious boyfriend. He was older, charming. For a while, it felt like a fairy tale. Until it wasn't. The relationship turned toxic. Arguments. Control. Threats. By 18, Shanice had enough. She walked away, bruised but not broken. Little did she know, this was just the first warning of the storms ahead. At 21, Shanice became a mother. Her first child, a daughter, was her pride and joy. She worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs, to give her baby the life she never had. A few years later, her second child came, another girl. Shanice's love for them was ferocious. She posted photos of them constantly, captions like, "My reason for breathing." Asterisk. But being a young single mother in Brooklyn wasn't easy. Money was tight. Childcare was a struggle. Yet Shanice refused to let her girls see her sweat. She danced with them in the living room. Made sure they did their homework. Promised them, "We're gonna be okay." Shanice Young met Justin Soriano in 2019. At first, he seemed like a dream come true, charming, attentive, a man who doted on her 2 daughters as if they were his own. He wasn't just a boyfriend, he played the role of a stepfather, taking the girls to the park, buying them gifts, promising Shanice the stability she'd always wanted. For a woman who had spent years fighting for her children alone, Justin's affection felt like shelter in a storm. He moved in quickly, blending into their lives. Friends noticed how happy Shanice seemed, finally, a man who treated her right. But cracks in the fairy tale began to show. Justin wasn't the perfect partner for long. Behind closed doors, his temper flared. Small arguments turned explosive. He began isolating Shanice, questioning her friends, monitoring her phone, accusing her of cheating if she came home late from work. Then came the possessiveness. He didn't like her wearing certain clothes. Didn't like her talking to other men, even coworkers. Once, he allegedly threw her phone against the wall in a rage. Another time, neighbors heard shouting, things breaking. But like so many women in abusive relationships, Shanice stayed. Why? Because in between the outbursts, Justin would apologize. He'd cry, promise to change. And Shanice, a mother who knew the struggle of raising kids alone, hoped he meant it. She wanted to believe love could fix him. Shanice already had 2 daughters from previous relationships. But with Justin, she became pregnant with her 3rd child, a son. For a brief moment, it seemed like a new beginning. Maybe this baby would solidify their family. Maybe Justin would finally be the man she needed. But the pregnancy didn't calm him. If anything, his anger grew worse. He accused her of being unfaithful, even suggesting the baby might not be his. The emotional whiplash was unbearable. One day, he'd rub her belly, calling himself a proud father. The next, he'd scream at her, leaving Shanice in tears. By early 2021, Shanice had enough. The final straw. An argument so violent, she feared for her life. Details are scarce. Shanice didn't always report the abuse, but friends say that night, something in her snapped. She packed her daughter's things, left their shared home, and moved back in with her mother. For the first time in years, she breathed freely. She focused on her kids, her unborn son. She even started seeing someone new, a man who treated her gently, who reminded her that love shouldn't hurt. But Justin wasn't ready to let go. After the breakup, Justin's obsession grew. He bombarded her with calls. Showed up at her job. Followed her. Shanice told friends, if anything happens to me, it's him. She even filed a police report, but it wasn't enough to stop him. By September 2021, Shanice had rebuilt her life without Justin. She was weeks away from giving birth to her son, Jace. On September 12, her family threw a baby shower at a Brooklyn park, pink and blue decorations, laughter, a fleeting moment of normalcy. Her daughters played nearby as loved ones celebrated the new life coming. Justin Soriano wasn't always a killer, but his past hinted at a man capable of violence. Long before he met Shanice, he had a history of escalating aggression, buried beneath a charming facade. Friends from his teenage years later admitted to police, he had a scary temper. If he felt disrespected, he'd snap. But the real red flags emerged in his prior relationships. One ex-girlfriend, who asked to remain anonymous, told investigators that Justin once punched a hole in her wall during an argument. Another said he'd threatened to expose her secrets if she left him. These women got away. Shanice didn't. Justin's obsession with Shanice wasn't an isolated incident. Court records revealed he had a history of harassing exes, though most cases were dropped out of fear. One woman filed a restraining order in 2017 after he showed up at her job unannounced for weeks. The parallels to Shanice's case were chilling. But the most damning evidence came from his phone records. After Shanice left him, Justin sent over 200 unanswered texts in a single month, some pleading, others threatening. One read, "You think you can just replace me? I'll make sure you regret it." In the weeks before the murder, Justin's behavior grew increasingly erratic. Neighbors reported seeing him pacing outside Shanice's apartment at night. Her mother begged her to stay elsewhere, but Shanice refused to hide. "I'm not letting him control me anymore," she told a friend. Then came the handwritten note. Days before the killing, Justin broke into Shanice's apartment while she was out. He left a single page on her bed. A rambling mix of apologies and threats. The last line read, "If I can't have you, no one will." Shanice showed it to her sister, who urged her to call the police. She did. But by then, it was too late. Despite the restraining order, the police reports, the clear pattern of escalation, no one intervened in time. Later, prosecutors would argue, this murder was preventable. September 12, 2021. A sunny Sunday afternoon in Brooklyn. Shanice Young, 31 years old and 8 months pregnant, laughed with friends and family at her baby shower in Brower Park. Pink and blue balloons floated in the breeze. Her daughters, 9-year-old Kayla and 5-year-old Amaya, played nearby, excited for their baby brother's arrival. The air was full of joy. But in the shadows, Justin Soriano watched. Surveillance footage later showed him pacing near the park entrance hours before the party started. Witnesses reported seeing a man matching his description loitering by a silver Honda. The same car he'd later used to flee the murder scene. But no one approached him. No one knew the monster he was about to become. By 3 p.m., the celebration wound down. Shanice gathered her gifts, hugged her loved ones, and began the short walk home with her daughters. It was the last time anyone would see her alive. Just 3 blocks from her apartment, Justin appeared. Witnesses described him walking briskly toward Shanice, his face eerily calm. Before she could react, he raised a gun, a .40 caliber Glock later linked to multiple unsolved crimes, and fired 6 times at point-blank range. The first bullet struck her in the chest. The second grazed her arm as she tried to shield her pregnant belly. The next 4 were kill shots, 2 to the back as she collapsed. Her daughters screamed. Kayla, the oldest, dropped to her knees, cradling her mother's head as blood pooled on the sidewalk. Amaya stood frozen, still clutching a baby shower favor, a tiny stuffed bear. Neighbors rushed outside at the sound of gunfire. One later told police. The little girl kept saying, "Wake up, Mommy. Please wake up." Justin sprinted back to his car and sped off, leaving Shanice to die in the street. At 3:17 p.m., Kayla grabbed her mother's phone and dialed 911. The operator's recording, later played in court, captured every second of horror. 911, what's your emergency? My mommy's shot. He shot my mommy. She's not breathing. Kayla sobbed. Who shot her, sweetheart? Justin. My mom's boyfriend. Please, hurry. The baby's not moving. Paramedics arrived within minutes, but it was too late. Shanice and her unborn son, Jace, were pronounced dead at the scene. Justin Soriano became one of Brooklyn's most wanted men. NYPD tracked his silver Honda through traffic cameras as he fled toward Queens. Detectives discovered he'd prepared for this. A duffel bag with cash, extra clothes, and a burner phone was found in his trunk. A fake ID under another name and a handwritten map of back roads to the Canadian border were all found in his possession. But his plan unraveled fast. By nightfall, tips poured in from the public. At 1:30 a.m., police surrounded a motel in Elmont, New York. Justin tried to escape through a bathroom window, still wearing the same blood-splattered shoes from the murder. He was tackled, arrested, and eerily silent as officers read him his rights. In custody, Justin initially denied everything. Then, detectives played him Kayla's 911 call. According to an NYPD source, his face went blank. Then, he smirked. Hours later, he confessed, not out of remorse, but arrogance. He bragged about teaching Shanice a lesson for leaving him. Claimed she'd made him do it. Worst of all, he showed zero emotion describing how her daughters begged for help as she bled out. When asked about the baby, he shrugged. That wasn't my kid anyway. The trial was even more shocking. Survivors testified. The 911 call played in court. And Justin Soriano did the unthinkable when the verdict was read.